Let's just get right into it. You've been spending a lot of time with him over the past week. What do you know?
Well, he certainly is passionate about certain missions, and one of his missions for the past year has been expanding the realm of free speech, which is acceptable discourse. He's been very annoyed at things that have happened on Twitter and social media. As you know, he's somewhat obsessive and fanatical about his use of Twitter and social media. But I think it's not just expanding the notion of what is permissible speech. He feels that Twitter is a product that needs to be upgraded significantly. He's a pretty hardcore person when it comes to running his company. He's working 24/7. And he feels that the Twitter gang has not really kept itself abreast, especially when it comes to subscription and consumer revenue. You want to balance advertising revenue with other revenue.
What do you know on the free speech piece? I think there's a lot of people who don't either understand or know, and maybe nobody knows, but you've talked to him. Some people say, well, he's going to bring former President Trump back on the platform, for example. He would let lots of conversations about either politics, health, or other things that have been either, I don't know, censored or maybe downranked so that they're not showing up on the algorithm the way they might otherwise. What do you see him doing exactly?
Well, on the algorithm, I think he wants to make it open source. I think he wants to publish it on GitHub so people will know exactly the components of what gets upranked or downranked. I think he has ideas about even using people who use Twitter to help uprank or downrank things. When it comes to banning people from the platform, he's said that he's not in favor of permanent bans, that there can be timeouts, and that basically Twitter and other social media should follow the laws of any particular nation, but not necessarily be more stringent than those laws. So if it's legal speech, put it on.
Walter, talking about laws, there are questions about some of the laws and Elon's relationship to them. This relates, if you will, to both his attempt at now a takeover of Twitter, going from a, quote, passive investor to an active investor to a takeover artist, all in the course of 1 week. What do you think the potential legal liability is for him in that regard? And then just last week, his comments at the TED conference, I think almost universally, any lawyer who had looked at his previous settlement and the restrictions around speech, and we can debate whether there should be restrictions around speech, but that was the settlement. It appears that he breached those.
Well, you probably will not be able to get somebody on your show who's less of a fan of the SEC than Elon Musk. And he feels that a gun was put to his head when he had to settle that time that he tweeted out that financing was secured to take Tesla private. He felt financing was secured, but he was forced into a settlement. And Elon Musk is not the type of person, if he's got a deep, strong belief, to bite his tongue. And certainly hasn't bitten his tongue about the SEC. He is almost, passionate and enraged at some of the things the SEC has done.